Do so. Okay, well, I'm told we do have a quorum, so we'll get this meeting started. I guess the first item on the agenda is, give me a second here. Chair's report. I did talk to
No,
Al.
we need to reorganize.
Oh, I thought we did that. All right. Okay. Um, so we'll need to have a chair and a vice chair. Is that what we're looking at?
Well, and
Yes,
all the officers, right?
Right.
yeah. Al did say he would be willing to continue to chair the group.
And I'll make a motion to re-elect Al Jessica as the chairman.
Oh, moved.
We have a second. Anybody second?
Second.
Okay. I guess all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, I guess Al's the new chairman again. Does somebody want to make a nomination for vice chairman?
I'll make that nomination for Charlie Fleischman.
Do I hear a second for that?
Second.
So seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Anybody opposed? Thank you. I guess we next should go to secretary. Anybody want to make a motion for secretary? I'll make a motion to request that Mark Gallant continue as secretary. Any second?
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Thank you, Mark.
So let's make an assumption that Mark is good to go. Is that a correct statement?
I think
Okay.
so.
All right. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We have no opposing. That is made. We need a treasurer. Anybody like a motion for treasurer? If
I'll
not,
move
I'll
the-
make a.
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Charlie. No,
Go
I'll
ahead, David.
move that we thank Bob for be willing to do it.
Bob, you willing?
Yes, I'm willing.
And I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Bob.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none, we have a new treasurer. And who else we need?
I
I
think that's
That's
it.
it.
think that's it. All right, well, that was painless. Anything else we need to do there? We need to say, all right, so scheduling. We're going to schedule for the fourth Wednesday every month, 2005. Anybody have any problems with that?
Except for December.
Right.
Yeah. Good catch.
And we're also reserving the first Thursday of each month as needed.
Correct.
And did that ad go out, Mark?
It did.
Okay.
So basically, we're now holding the first Thursday and the fourth Wednesday each month for our meetings. We need them. All right, Mark, anything else you need to do on that in that regard? We have the dues. We took care of it last year at the end of the year. Did we do about dues?
Well, what was decided at the end of 2023 in regard to the comp plan and that whole work program is that the idea would be at the beginning of 2024 and beginning of 2025 that each municipality would pay their share of the full 3-year project of $2,550. And of course, we got all of those in 2024. I don't know, Bob, if we've received any more of those since the last time we met.
We have 4 so far.
Oh, great. Okay. So who's still up? Who's still on deck?
Well, let's see. We have East Nottingham, we have West Nottingham, we have the Borough, and we have Upper Oxford.
Okay, so Elk and Lower Oxford, is that right? Is left to go?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so Bob, as long as you're working that, you want to continue
I
on
was
it?
going to say that's most of the treasurer's report there.
Okay,
Those are the income items. Income's been pretty fantastic.
Am I,
The
am
expenditure was the ad in the Southern Chester County Press. And that has been paid. And right now, our bank balance is $18,622.81. I have not received a recent request from the county for the next payment.
Pauline, were you saying something?
I got a question, and I don't know if this was like a one-time thing we did, or it's supposed to be an annual thing, or if I'm just completely not remembering this correctly at all. I thought like at the beginning of last year we had approved like a there used to be, but it's kind of gone in arrears that there was like a small couple $100 annual dues that we're supposed to pay each year to help cover like legal ads and things like that. Is that we're supposed to do that every year now, right?
It is something that it's in the implementation agreement, or I'm sorry, the bylaws, an agreement that at the beginning of every year, $200 from each municipality, again, as you said, to cover any costs, any associated costs with the region. Most of those years, it was decided to not, I shouldn't say most, but many of those years was decided that we didn't need to do that because we had enough in the treasury that we were okay. And if something came up, then the request would go out to the 6 municipalities requesting some additional funds. That decision was not decided this year, so it was not decided whether we would do the $200 or not this year. And I'm not sure if the group wants to talk about that. I know the 18,000 seems like a lot of money, and it is, but at the same time, the region will still be paying quarterly towards the contract to complete the comprehensive plan update. And I don't remember what exactly that. I mean, I know that the plan was 2550 for 2 years would cover all the costs for the 3 years of the project. I'm not sure what's left in terms of the number there. Like if there's an extra 2,000 or in the account, I don't know.
Mark, my memory is that at some meeting, and it's usually not the first, you actually bring us a budget, which is a pretty bare bones document. And I thought that it was at that meeting that we would make the decision of whether we thought we needed additional money from the municipality. So I guess I would suggest that we wait until March or April or whenever you want to do that to bring us that
Absolutely, that's
document.
something that slipped my mind until this morning, and absolutely, that's something that we have to do. That's a secretary role, not consultant role, is to pull together that report and also the budget for the following year. So I will pull that together in the next, before the next meeting,
Okay, yeah.
and we can make
I
that decision in
forgot we
March.
have two this month.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Right.
did ask, go ahead.
No,
The
I'm sorry. I meant
record-
for the February, the regular February meeting.
Yeah.
I forgot where we were on the calendar.
I was just going to say we have made 3 payments so far to the county for 9,000, about 10,000, a little bit.
Anybody else? Okay, well, looping back to Chair's report, I did chat with Al, and he said he did not have anything to say in particular, but and he would call me if he had anything. But so far, nothing's happened. So we've gone through reorganization. We have a treasurer's report. I guess that drops us down to municipal updates. Anybody have any municipal updates they want to share?
I'll give a quick update on something I'm really excited about. The fire rebuild and the theater rebuild is making both those projects are making a lot of progress. I'm OMI hired an executive director to oversee the theater project, and I represent the borough on that board. And to see what Liz has done in the last 4 or 5 months has been incredible. And things are really coming together with the theater. At the same time, we're starting to see what is proposed for the rest of the fire site. That is Wilson King's private build, which he has called King's Cross, a mixed use development that I think is really in keeping from what we've seen so far with the historic nature of the downtown and really brings something new and interesting and dynamic to downtown Oxford. And both of those projects will be supported and uplifted, I guess, by our Nyblock redevelopment project, which is taking that alley and turning it into a redeveloped road with new utilities to service the redevelopment of all those buildings on Nyblock and on 3rd Street and Market Street. And the three different projects are coordinating together, working together hand in hand. And I think this is the year we'll make a lot of progress on all the pre-construction stuff so that next year we start seeing shovels on the ground with the Nyblock project and then hopefully not too far then after King's Cross and the theater. So it's all really exciting stuff. It'll be transformative for the downtown and we're very excited about it.
Pauline, can you tell me if there are any waivers that are being requested?
Like from saldo and zoning requirements?
Yes.
Yeah, so they will need some zoning relief. You'll recall that like the buildings that were historically built there were built with sometimes even sharing brick walls built right directly to the parcel. So to try to do what they want to do there, they need some setback relief on setback and a couple of other things. We're in the final throes of our big saldo and zoning ordinance, which update, which I see Mark and Catherine shaking their heads, which really will provide them some of the relief that they already need, because what we want to do through this project is try to incentivize the types of development that we want, which is dynamic mixed use development that brings new commercial amenities to the first floor and much needed residential to the upper floors. So we're still working through if there's any relief beyond that they may need, but lawyers are talking to lawyers, engineers are talking to engineers, and it's moving forward.
Can you tell me if any are have to do with height increase, how tall these buildings will be?
Yes. So through the saldo and zoning update, and this was very well vetted through all of our public meetings and through the process, we have a proposed what we're calling a density bonus, a height bonus for density. So and it's aimed at trying to get more affordable housing and attainable housing into the borough. So for those fire parcels, and then for parcels south of Hodgson Street on 3rd Street, a developer could build up to 5 floors. So they can build up to 4 floors now by right. They've always been able to do that. They would be able to build up to 5 floors with that 5th floor being set back, so it's not looming over the downtown, if they're willing to commit to 20% of the residential units being affordable, which means no more than the rent would not be more than 30% of the renter's income, at individuals and families making up to or below 120% of the area median income. And that is to it's to try to get more affordable housing and attainable housing into downtown. That's consistent with our comprehensive plan, our downtown revitalization plan, and was discussed extensively through the public meetings for the saldo and zoning update.
Pauline, I'm sorry to hound you on this, but when
No.
the setback part, how far, and I don't know if you know the answer, how far back do they have to go? And was there ever any kind of conversation about, sunlight hitting the other side of the road?
There was, and I don't remember exactly how far back it has to be set by just off the top of my head. But when we were considering whether or not to do it, the consultant was able to give us renderings of time of day, how in times of year, what the shade would look like for the property owners that abut those parcels that would be affected by that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure, no problem. I will say that the proposed King's Cross development, their proposed 5th floor is way back towards Nyblock. It's well beyond, because what they envision is something that's really open and pedestrian friendly and kind of connects Third Street to a redeveloped NI block, and then the theater itself will sit right on street frontage on Third Street. So that fifth floor setback is way back.
Okay. And I'm sorry I wasn't involved in looking at all that. I would normally go to those kinds of meetings, but you can only stretch yourself so thin.
Oh, no worries. I get it. If you have
yeah.
more questions, happy to, provide more information offline. Or, I do think it's probably going to be the next council meeting, February 24th is the tentative date right now. The King's Cross people plan to come in and do a presentation to council. That's tentative.
Thank
I
you.
can let you know if that moves.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
So I have two things. This is David. One is kind of regional. I don't know how many of you got word that DEP has announced a draft revision to their MS4 permit. The permit they're actually talking about now is the PAG 13 general permit, and none of the municipalities in our region that does not apply to any of the municipalities in our region. We have 3 of our municipalities have currently individual permits, and 3 of us have waivers. And if you give me a moment, because I can't do 2 things at the same time, I will try to put into the chat where am I here? Come on. The list of municipalities and the dates at which their permits either were approved or their waivers were granted. And all of our municipalities have 5 years from the date granted, either to renew their permit or to apply for a continuation of the waiver. So in many ways, this does not directly affect any of us. I will say that the changes that are being made in the permit, which are largely moving from focusing on controlling specific pollutants, namely sediment and nutrients, but to controlling volume flows of water off of our impervious surface, which of course carries the nutrients into our waters. I raise all this because there's a 45-day comment period that I believe ends on March 19th. And I think the hope is that all of our engineers will have, through one means or another, engaged in the process of looking at the draft and would be delivering comments and questions to DEP in this period. I'm not suggesting that you ask your engineer to do that, because they probably would bill you, but at least some kind of communication to the engineer that maybe we hope you are engaged in this process would be, I guess, my suggested action item. West Nottingham has already asked its engineer, I believe that's right, Bill, LTL, to be engaged in this process. It's something we're going to need to be thinking about, or needing to have good service from our engineers in this area. Not immediately. We're still in kind of for us, the doldrums of not very aggressive DEP engagement on it, but down the line, we're going to need to do that. So I wanted to make sure that was that everybody was aware of that.
Okay, what was the section? You cited G something or other.
The permit number is PAG-13, the general permit.
Gotcha.
And I can, if you're interested, I can send you the announcement about the permit coming out. It was in the Pennsylvania Bulletin.
That'd be great.
Okay. I will make a note to do that, Charles.
Any other municipal updates?
I have something for the borough that news should be spread around, I think. When we finished out last year with the budget, we ended up approving funding the library at $5 per person, which is the recommended county level. I mean, the county's recommendation for funding. And we funded the Oxford Area Rec Authority at $3 per person. So they may be coming around to the rest of the municipalities, and so you should know that's what the borough did.
Anybody else?
Well, I have
we've got-
another one. This one's specific to West. I'm wondering if any of you know how you are treating in your municipalities. Well, I don't know what to quite call them. Pods, sea containers. Technically, they're intermodal. Well, they're modeled off intermodal shipping containers. And the question is, how do you handle them? And West Nottingham has some specific language in our zoning ordinance that forbids the use of, well, travel trailers, former mobile homes, and truck bodies as storage units on property. And the question is, well, what is one of these pods or shipping containers? Certainly a shipping container that has been shipped was designed to be on a boat and also on a truck. I don't know that I would call that a truck body, but our solicitor does. So that question came up, and I just wondered whether there have been any issues, or how have your zoning officers handled it when a business or a resident chooses to put one of them on the property, either temporarily or as essentially a storage shed.
We just updated our ordinance, or actually created one, for the reason that people were putting dumpsters out on the street, ruining the asphalt, and so we handled that. Or we updated our ordinance to. I was not involved in that on the planning commission level. That was strictly a board of supervisors endeavor. But they did go through and define those things. Now, what if my memory serves me correctly, and I don't have anything in front of me, a truck body is defined as a former part of, or a part of a truck that was originally intended to be permanently mounted to the chassis of the truck, not a roll-off dumpster or a pod or something that was designed to stand on its own. The truck body would have clearances for the rear wheels. It would have lighting and all kinds of DOT provisions on it for things like that, and just be disconnected from the truck and set on the ground. Whereas the other containers would be defined as intended to be rolled off and left on the ground as a separate part of the truck, or not part of the truck, or that could be rolled up onto different trucks, or multiples on one larger truck, or something of that nature. But a truck body was originally designed and intended to be a permanent part of the truck, and is now separated from it. So
And they allowed it for 2 weeks. You had to get a permit.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah.
David, I assume you're referring, maybe it's a dumb question, but I assume you're referring to permanent uses, not temporary.
Well, yeah, the question, we don't have a good definition of temporary, but yes.
So we
Because
don't
we-
allow permanent. It is only temporary.
You don't allow it. It's got to be over for a limited period of time for both
Yes,
the
and-
dumpster and the container.
Yes, and then you have to get another permit if it's going to be longer than 14 days.
Okay, I will contact Rachel and ask for a copy of the
Eileen-
ordinance language.
didn't we excuse that? Didn't we not include agricultural properties?
We did not include commercial or agricultural property.
Okay, so it was strictly a residential.
Correct.
Okay.
What if it's a tiny house made from a storage container?
No,
Well,
that's a house. That's not, you're not using it. I
Well, I
mean,
mean, what if it's an accessory use to the primary use? So if there's already a house, you've got 3 acres in the back, and you put a tiny house on that property, meaning an accessory use to the primary use.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to
No,
that.
I know. I only throw it out there because there's a lot of different variables that come in there because there are storage containers that are being made into tiny houses, and maybe it's
Right.
not something that's impacting Chester County right now, but it will.
I think
Yeah, I
the
was-
main purpose was because it was destroying the roads when they're left in the road.
Yeah, I mean that's different.
Yeah.
I would imagine that's an easy one to defend against because of safety and welfare and so on. But that's interesting.
This is timely because
Code for the borough into the chat.
it.
Ah.
Yeah. What did you pull? I'm curious because Terry and I were just talking about this the other day, and that we need to address it better. We wanted to bring that to the Saldo and zoning update.
I just pulled up from our code what I just put in the chat.
Oh, yeah.
Word
Okay.
for word.
Yeah. So truck trailers, but or similar structures, but what specifically the shipping containers have
right.
been
Yeah, I don't
proposed.
think we
Yeah,
have anything for
our
that.
ordinance doesn't speak to that right now, and we want to address that because we've had one problem case in particular. People try to use them as storage sheds and things like that. So it's
Yep.
on our list.
Sounds like something else to add to your list that you're going to talk about at the
Yeah.
township.
Yeah, Terry and I were just
Sorry.
talking about it this week. I was like, well, let's add it to the list.
A little bit of an inside joke there.
Yeah.
Well, we demonstrated last night at our planning commission meeting that one could spend hours on this particular topic. So I'm going to shut up about it right now so we can get on with our agenda. But thank you so much for sharing this information. I appreciate it.
Perhaps we can add this to this like a discussion piece later on for the region because everybody's going to have to deal with it.
And we have anyway, the whole thing about storage, outdoor storage is really confusing.
Yep.
It's not really clear to a resident what they are allowed and are not allowed to do. So yeah, I would welcome that and all the free time we're going to have this year.
just for one simple thing that might clear it up or clear something up for you. I've experienced this in my business, but the what makes the storage containers attractive is the fact that they're rodent proof. So depending on what you're storing in there, that's what makes them more attractive than just say like an Amish built stick built shed. That's one of the things, and the cost. When roofing materials and cost of lumber went up, those storage containers became really attractive. But that's the only thing I've learned in my experience.
Yeah, they're airtight. I mean,
yeah, and they're rodent proof without.
Yeah.
If you've got livestock around, that's one less thing you need to have. Insecticides or rodent poisons and things of that nature. You don't need that around when you have those things, which is another thing that makes them attractive to farmers and people that handle that stuff. That's it.
We've got a couple things for out in Upper Oxford.
Yeah.
I guess everybody else seeing the same thing. We're getting a lot of new cabling strung. I guess it's not strong. It's just doing most of it. I'm not sure if they're going to go to Frontier or not, but so we're getting a lot of that happening.
Mhm.
And if anyone wants, we have a new engineering firm. Ron Reagan is retired, so we now are working with Gilmore. So if anyone has any questions for our engineer, that's who we would go to. And that reserve at Upper Oxford next to Lincoln University. Lincoln University asked if we would consider, sidewalks and multimodal aspects of that. So that might be something which might tie into Lower Oxford. So we might need, if that happens, we might need to talk to each other about that. But then I think everything else is pretty quiet. I guess the only thing I think is happening is the talk about the police force, which I guess could happen tomorrow. Curious what happens there. Anybody else? Okay, I guess we'll move on to Moran Farm. ORPC.
I'm going to take off.
Good night, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Borough really doesn't have an update. We issued preliminary at the end of last year, and we're just waiting for a new submission. I know that our water department's been coordinating with them to get them some base plans on things so they can do the work that they need to do. But yeah, we don't have any other update other than that.
They have a lot of permits that they need to get at the state level, and they still have to get sign off from PennDOT for that.
Yeah,
for
correct.
that other road. So I think it's going to be quite some time.
Agreed.
Yeah, we're in the
Yeah.
same status as you are.
You mean with the Her Farm?
Well, we've had several packed house meetings. Would you like me to speak on that? Or?
Sure. If nothing else has something to say about the Moran Farm, I think that's.
Well, the Moran Farm, we're in the same status as the borough. There's nothing different than what they're experiencing.
Okay, so that does, but the Her Farm issue is different.
Yeah, the Her Farm is a different development than the Moran. Yeah.
Right.
Well, the Her Farm, we've had several packed house meetings. We've had a tremendous amount of public opinion being expressed at those meetings. At the last planning commission meeting, we made two motions. One of them was to decline the preliminary plan because we were forced up against a deemed acceptance deadline. So we had our last bite at the apple, and we took that opportunity to decline the preliminary plan based on a lot of unfinished environmental issues and a lot of other serious concerns. Traffic was another big one. After we got the results of that survey, we started to really pay attention to what the traffic studies were saying, and most of them unanimously concurred that there is not enough information to be provided basically to give an accurate traffic study because of the I guess you could use the lack of candor as to who the tenant is going to be and the type of business that's going to be in some of the proposed space. We also, at a planning commission level, made a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors that they do the same and not consider any height increases because it became quite evident that an increase in height not only would increase the square footage of the business, but allow a different type of a type of business in there that would exponentially increase the traffic flow and the type and time that the traffic would be. And a lot of the residents are severely concerned about the truck traffic. We also weighted the recommendation with the 6 other advisory committees that also expressed concern. The borough would like to thank you guys for actually expressing your concern, and they've actually sent someone out to actually more than one person has come out to join one of our meetings and express their concern about the project and how it would affect the borough. And so we've got those two motions on the table that passed through the planning commission, and it's now in the Board of Supervisors' hands. We have the next Board of Supervisors meeting is scheduled for next Tuesday. Is the developer himself is supposed to attend and give a presentation, so that should be quite interesting.
Joe, you also had 2 other motions that took place at our last planning commission meeting. One being that the board would I don't know, formally dismiss or recuse or whatever
Right. There was some controversy about the existence of a ordinance change that was that the solicitor was asked to create back in 2023. That there was some, I guess you could say, denial of its existence, that we managed to find that request in the minutes, and we brought it to the attention in this motion, and formally asked the Board of Supervisors to recognize, number one, that motion exists, and to please discontinue considering that motion to raise the height.
And the other motion was to request the board have a hearing on the development.
Right. That if well, that was before they voted to approve the plan. We requested a public hearing to so that everything would be out, so the public would be fully aware of what I guess it would so the public would be aware of exactly what the Board of Supervisors would be voting on, whether they're going to be voting on a by right plan, straight up by right, or if they were considering allowing variances in that, so that there wouldn't be anything. The public would have a chance to express themselves before they voted.
And it would also give the public an opportunity, the opportunity to ask questions of the developer.
Right.
That the developer would have to address.
Right, exactly. Thank you, Amy. So that's pretty much where we are. Things are looking optimistic. The public has definitely expressed itself.
Any other discussion on that? Okay.
Charles,
Yes, sir.
I just want to thank the folks from the borough and the other municipalities that have helped us out with this. It means a lot to have the support of our neighbors, and we sure hope that we can do what we can not to impose any hardships on you. So I do greatly appreciate, but the borough especially is it seems to have allotted some time and even some money towards helping us with this, and I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. And I would just say that we've tried to get somebody there for each meeting. Your meetings happen to be falling whenever we have a council meeting.
Right.
If it weren't for that, I think Catherine and/or I would be there as well.
I understand, but I appreciate what you have done. It's helped tremendously.
well, under that heading, Joe, I would note that Donna Croson, who's on this call and is one of our township auditors, has attended some of those meetings
Hello.
to monitor our interests. I would also note, and again, Bill, you might correct me on the exact wording, but West has requested that what's the right way of describing it, that PennDOT be open to consulting with us should the project be approved and should the actual traffic counts exceed the levels that were estimated in the latest traffic study, so that there might be the possibility of reconsidering the obligations that PennDOT has imposed on it. It's, I guess, a kind of a technical point of just trying to ensure that PennDOT is continuing to monitor the situation should the plans go through as currently designated.
I'm glad you mentioned that, David, because Candy reached out to me and mentioned that as well. And so I pushed that to our solicitor and engineer to say, hey, have you heard of this? Is this something we can do too? So we might be trying to back you up there.
That would be great. Maybe
Thank
they
you.
can
That is great.
helicopter all their stuff out without going through West or without going through the borough.
That would be great.
Anybody else have anything to say on this? Okay, well, David, you're up again with Blair, I guess, on the ORPC subcommittee for the historic, the EAC.
Sure. We actually had our January meeting last night. Um, could sort of following the pattern that ORPC is doing. So I would say that top of our agenda is to organize in the spring. A tentative date is March 31st, a stakeholders meeting dating back to 2019 when ORPC sort of started its Stormwater Action Initiative. Every other year, we've hosted a meeting of conservancy organizations, watershed organizations, county entities, basically partners in protecting the environment in our region together. And we're proposing to have the next of those stakeholder meetings this spring. And in formulating it together, especially since some of the immediate pressure to sort of meet our MS4 requirements have been backed off a bit, we decided that it makes sense to actually have the conversation kind of focused on the formulation of our comp plan review. Because the principle is that the comprehensive plan is the guide to the policy direction that our 6 municipalities are going to be taking together, making sure that the stakeholders fully understand what that effort involves, and giving them a chance to make the case that their priorities in the region should be embraced by all of us as we revise that comp plan. So it's kind of a comp plan centered meeting this time, and I think that nicely coincides with the outreach effort that well, we have all been doing, but led by Mark and Elise. A second element is that we're getting ready for the series of First Friday events. The first one, I believe, will be in May, and we had a really successful event there with partnering with the Octorara Watershed Association and the Elk Creeks Watershed Association, and both of them are eager to do it again. And we'll be lining up other First Friday events as that date nears. I would note that EQUA has 2 invasive plant removal workdays pinned down, and so an opportunity for volunteers from any part of our region to join in that. And one is on Tuesday, February 19th at the Little Elk Creek Preserve, and the other that we have down is Wednesday, March 12th at the Big Elk Creek Preserve, State Park Preserve. And I'm again failing to be able to multicast. I want to put that address in the chat. There we go. So a way you could learn more about those events. And then back. Okay. We're also going to be supporting a number of initiatives continuing in the borough, talking to landowners about lawn to meadow conversion. We're very excited that the Mount Vernon road rebuild with stormwater related bump outs is going to be moving forward, and then continuing with the borough's really exciting progress on expanding the number of native plant gardens, pollinator gardens that are in the borough. So I would say those are the highlights of where we're immediately heading this spring. Happy to answer questions, or Blair, you can lead off with the historic subcommittee.
I'll start with the one overlap. David and I had communication with the Chester County Water Resources Authority. They provided us with maps of the tributaries in the Octorara and the Big Elk Creek watersheds. My conclusion was just the more we can reference these tributaries, the more it could help to make residents familiar with the watershed that they're in or the tributary that they may be in close proximity to. So rolling that into the historic preservation effort, we're working on those four interpretive signs, one being the gateway for the OHA building in the borough, and then the other three, one at Glenroy Preserve, one at Lincoln Village, and another at Elk Township parking lot, and with a fifth sign at Old Stone Cider as a sort of bonus for Elk Township. Those drafts are moving along. We hope to get the orders in this spring because it should take about 6 months to manufacture, so that we'll have them by the fall for installation. The one most recent happening was getting the application for the HARB approval for the borough's sign on in their historic district where the OHA building exists. Then I guess I would also roll back to the tributaries. Upper Oxford does a spring and fall newsletter. And so we're going to try to work on weaving the tributaries into some of our news articles having to do with historic preservation as well. So kind of brief, but I'll be in touch with Mark and his team next week if the weather cooperates, because we're looking to get sort of approval by the folks at the county who are coordinating this effort with a countywide heritage interpretive networking that's just passed by the Chester County Commissioners last year. Yeah. So we're doing all the right things in advance of the 250th celebration of the country. So that's all I had.
Claire, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
I think you'd indicated at one point that you may have found funding for the signage through a grant or something like that. What's the status of that? Because if you're waiting on a check from the borough, we want to get that to you.
No, we did not get that grant. So
Okay.
We're moving forward. But the fact that we didn't get the grant, we don't need money from the borough because we're, Glenroy Preserve being the Oxford Area Foundation is going to be participating, and Old Stone Cider is also going to be participating. So we agreed to absorb some of the other costs associated by how we're pitching in. So yeah, so no need for borough.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
that's great. Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks.
Who says the other 5 municipalities don't support the borough?
Never been said.
Never been said. Right?
Okay, anybody else have anything, just subcommittees?
I would just say I continue to be slightly in awe of what David and Blair and the two groups are doing, and I'm very, very thankful for that. And yeah, I just, again, it really it gets me excited about what the AAC is doing, what the idea of these interpretive signs going in around the region. Just again, thank you for all your hard work.
Yep. Okay, well, Mark, you have the floor, I guess, for your multiple comprehensive plan updates.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we're going to deviate a little bit from the agenda and what the agenda says in terms of the comp plan. And what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about where we are with the comp plan update, and really what we need to do to keep moving forward in this process. So believe it or not, we're a little over a year into the work program, which kind of blows me away a little bit. And honestly, we're still a couple of months behind. And while we could talk about different variables as to why we may be a little bit behind, but really it comes down to the difficulty we have had getting through the existing condition section, which is something we hope to have done, a couple of months back, but are still struggling with the amount of information that we're trying to pull together. I'll remind you folks that, and I'm not sure if you can see this, but this is this is the comp plan, which is as thick as, well, I would say my head, but it's about 3 inches thick, and everything in there is pretty important. And we're moving in a different direction this time. As you may recall, we're doing what is called an implementable plan. And what that means is that the plan chapters will be very specific and concise. It'll be like, okay, here's what we need to lead you into the recommendations and actions. So the township or borough has something immediate to do. They know what to do. They know what the priorities are. And then pulling all of the inventory information, which was once part of the plan chapters, into its own appendix. And I will say that, 6 is harder than 1. I will put it that way. But looking at it from a volume perspective, I think 6 of the 8 have been pulled into this appendix that's the existing conditions, and we're at like 128 pages. And again, none of this information is unimportant. It's all very important, and it needs to be part of this process in order to support the policy that's put forward, the goals, the objectives, the recommendations. So it's not like it's unimportant, but the struggle is that there's so much of it, and there's so much that is part of the Oxford region. So keeping this in mind, that's really the delay that we've been working through, and we still are working on this on a daily basis. But one of the things that Lisa and I talked about, and because we haven't gotten into the plan chapters and through this process, is that we really have been not utilizing our 2 untapped resources. And those are the ORPC membership, where obviously we've given you homework here and there, but not a lot. But also our subcommittees. We just talked about the work that the subcommittees do. And what we want to make sure moving forward is that we're utilizing your knowledge and experience. That's really key here, because we know planning. We know how to plan on a regional and a municipal basis, but the Oxford region. It's your home, it's your plan. And so what we thought about was, okay, how do we engage you guys now before we get to the plan chapters, before we get to the policy of the plan? And here's what our thoughts are. And we actually brought this up to the subcommittees because Blair happened to be at the EAC meeting last night, just to give them a little heads up before we kind of launch some of these ideas. But here they are. And while we continue to work on the existing conditions with a very optimistic goal of having this done by the end of this month, by the end of February, with the understanding, keep in mind, that this will be an evolving section, because right now we're looking at, for example, the details of police activity for 2024. This plan is not going to be adopted to the end of 2026. So a lot of the information we're pulling together is probably going to have to be updated again before we adopt this plan. So we're kind of looking at that, and that's again one of the struggles and challenges that we're going through to create this existing condition section. But in any case, we're going to work hard to try to get that done, let's say to 90% by the end of this month. While that's going on, in the meantime, how we're going to engage again our subcommittees and this membership is that we're going to send you out the current goals and objectives from the 2012 plan. We're going to ask you to look through those goals and objectives and come up with any ideas on what's already in there. Because that's what we're building for. We're building from that base, is from those 2012 objectives. So we're asking people to basically, are these objectives still up to date? Are they still something that the municipalities of the region should be within the purview of those municipalities? Or are there things that just weren't considered in 2012? Example, access to broadband wasn't really an issue, nothing that anybody was thinking about at that time. Housing affordability is discussed and in a sort of sideways kind of way, but it's not a primary thing like it is now. So things like that, we really want to hear back from you guys on those current goals and objectives so that we can move forward and bring you some updated goals and objectives. We're not asking you to write them, although, hey, if you have an idea, write it down, give it to us. We'll then use those to move forward. But that's the first piece of homework. Get you guys reviewing those goals and objectives and giving us feedback on them. The second part, and we had talked about this back in December. I think December Elise presented the sort of initial survey results, right? Well, there's a lot of stuff that could be gleaned from those survey results. And as I was looking through it, I guess it was last week, I was going, okay, I'd really like to know this. I'd really like to know that. Well, this is something else I think we could probably take out of these survey results. And I went, wait a second, this isn't my plan. This isn't my community. I mean, I know it well, but it's not my community. And I want to hear what you guys want to hear about from those survey results. So the second part of the homework is looking through the survey results, the very preliminary survey results, and letting us know what more you want to know. We're not going to make a guarantee that we can come up with those answers or come up with those ideas or those themes, but we'll do our best to do so. We have a lot of people here that we can work with. We have our survey folks that can help us perhaps work through some of those ideas. But it's better coming from you than it is from us. So we're going to give you those two opportunities: go through the goals and objectives, go through the survey results. We'll get those out with the meeting report by Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to say Tuesday just to be safe because the meeting reports take a little time, and I don't want to make any promises that I can't keep. But Monday or Tuesday, we'll get the meeting report out as well as those two pieces of homework for specifically for the ORPC membership. So for you folks and everybody else that's on that list, we'll be asking you to get it back to us by February 26th. I can't imagine it's going to be more than a couple of hours of work. And I know we're all very busy. As Eileen said, you can only stretch yourself so thin. I understand. But we're going to ask you guys to get that back to us by not by the 26th, the 21st. So then we can turn that around and bring those ideas to everybody on the 26th. The hope there is, and we're going to talk about what the homework is, and we're going to talk a little bit about moving forward, that we would like to come back at the March meeting. And I'm going to say the regular March meeting, not March 6th or whatever the first Thursday is, but the fourth Wednesday, with revised goals and objectives and with those deeper dives into the survey results. Whatever we can pull together by then. The hope there is that perhaps we can then have a public meeting again at the first Thursday in April, and bring those goals and objectives to the public. The public has not been engaged in a while. Those folks that showed up at the meeting, the first kickoff meeting or the kickoff meeting, and showed up and took the survey and so on and so forth, we want to be able to continue to engage them and bring them out to a public event where we can see what they think of the goals and objectives and if we missed anything. And also with the results of the survey, I think they would find that very interesting to hear some of those deeper dive into the results. So that's the first thing. And I want to stop for a second, give you folks a chance to ask any questions or share your thoughts on that first idea. And if you don't have it, that's fine. We'll expect to hear back from you after we send the homework out. And we're excited to hear what you folks have to say. Again, this is your plan. You have to buy into it and you have to be part of it. So in addition to that, now when we originally talked to the subcommittees, I don't know when, beginning of last year, we talked about the subcommittees taking part in the development of the plan chapters. So the EAC would be taking part with the natural resources plan, but as well, the community services and facilities plan, because that's where we talk about stormwater. That's where we're going to be talking about MS4. And in terms of the historic subcommittee, of course, the historic resources plan. But what we'd like to do is we'd like to engage them a little bit earlier, because most of that is coming in the spring and over the summer, the plan chapters. But we'd love to engage them now, engage them with the existing conditions, engage them with the goals and objectives, and hear from them now rather than wait till later. Because in the end, the goals and objectives are going to be the standard umbrella policy for the plan chapters. And if we already know what those goals and objectives are when we start working on the plan chapters, then the recommendations can all work to implement those goals and objectives. That's the intent. So rather than bring them in later, let's bring them in sooner. So what we'll also be doing is, as we're working through the existing conditions in the coming weeks, we're going to prioritize completing the historic existing conditions, the natural existing conditions, and the community facilities and services existing conditions, and then get them out to those groups to give us their feedback on that. Along with that, they will also get the current goals and objectives for those associated chapters and topics. So again, I just feel like we haven't gotten that experience and knowledge. We haven't been able to take advantage of that. And now's the time. Now's the time. And if we can get this all out sooner than later and get the feedback back from you folks, get the feedback back from the subcommittees, then we can truly move forward and start getting into plan chapters in the spring. You know, I would love to see that first, or not the first, that late April meeting, perhaps where we're looking at one of the first plan chapters. And it would not, I don't think it would be one of the those that are associated, like the natural, historic, and community facilities. It may be something else like parks and recreation or something like that. I don't know. We're not 100% sure about that now. But if we can get through this and get that first plan chapter out to you guys in late April, we're back on track. We're back on track. And quite frankly, a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, not that it's boring, it's important. You have to have it. But it's when you start getting into the recommendations that things get a little more exciting as planning gets. And that you folks will be I think, a little more engaged, because at that point you'll have something to chew on and you can get back to us. At least we generally find that when we're working through a comp plan, that's when people start getting really excited and engaged. And that's the part of the plan that we need to get to sooner than later, just so we can keep that moving. The other part of that is that I'd also like to re-engage those folks that came to the kickoff meeting, those folks that gave us their email address when they took the survey, and get them back into the loop. And I think the way to do that is to get a public meeting scheduled for sooner than later and get them out to that public meeting and engage them again. We had, I don't know, we're up to about 150 people that provided their email address. And that's look, we understand it's not statistically consistent or statistically important, but to me it is, because hearing from the residents means just a few more voices that we're hearing to help us to make sure that we're addressing the things we need to address in this plan. So those are the ideas here. We'll be working hard. We're going to ask you to do a little bit of work, and then we'll get back together and we'll see what everybody thinks, and then continue to move forward.
Mark?
Yes.
This is maybe a good chance to ask the East Nottingham Township representatives if they know by chance if anyone was appointed to the Historical Commission for East Nottingham Township, and if so, would they be willing to share their contact information with us so we can have them join our subcommittee to whatever extent they have time. But it'd be good to have them identified now so they can participate in this exercise also.
I believe someone was appointed at the reorg meeting, but I do not remember who that was, and I don't have it in front of me right now. But if you check the meeting minutes from our last Board of Supervisors reorg meeting, I believe that person's name is mentioned.
Would you? Yeah, who might have contact information? Like, is there a township secretary that?
Yeah, Diana would.
Okay.
Yeah.
At the township would have that contact information if that person.
Okay, sure. I'll reach out. Thanks.
I'm sure that they would. As for Diana Wood, she should be able to forward that information to you.
That's great.
Thank you.
I do have one more thing. I just wanted to share something real quick with you folks, and that's one of the documents we'll be sending out to you guys. It'll just take a moment. We'll get you out in just about 10 or 15 minutes at the most, if that's okay with everybody.
Yeah,
all right.
Ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and share, David. Oh, I'm disabled. I mean, I can't share the document. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready to go, David.
Mark, while you're waiting, I guess there's one more question I had, which would be, we have two committees that are functioning right now, which is because of the EAC and the historic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have any other functioning committees, do we?
The only other one that was functioning for a little bit, and I don't discount this group, is the transportation group. So I do want to reach out to Tiffany to see if she would like that same group to come back together, or if she would perhaps like to re-engage the full membership and see if anybody else wants to get on the committee. It's always helpful to have another set of eyes looking at things. I mean, obviously there's crossover. There are people that are on the committees that are also part of this membership. So I don't want to, you don't need to double dip and comment twice. But I think if that is a possibility, I'd love to engage her and see if that's something she would like to start back up. I don't know, David, if you'd have a chance to touch base with Tiffany on that to see if it's something they might want to do.
Yeah, we can follow up with Tiffany to see if she's still interested in pursuing that.
Yeah, I'm happy to send an email, but whatever works.
Sure. My other thought is, I just wonder if the renewed interest in the consequences of, if you will, some land development changes around here on transportation might have brought some folks out of the woodwork who would be interested in being engaged in such a committee.
That's possible, sure. Yeah, let's touch base with her and see what she thinks in terms of, I mean, I just want to give her the opportunity. I don't want to start another transportation subcommittee and her find out and go, wait a second, we had one. I just want to make sure I'm not stepping on any toes.
Well, you know what? I think you have the clearest vision of how you want to work this with the subcommittee. So why don't you write the email to Tiffany explaining that context and saying, how you envision it going and whether she would continue to be interested in doing that.
Sure, I can do that.
I guess conceptually, are there any other areas you think need some people to focus on?
I would say no, and I don't want to dramatize this at all, but I'm glad there's not a subcommittee for every topic area. And I only say that from the standpoint that it's a lot to juggle all of that information in those comments. I like comments. I'm a planner who likes you to tell me I'm wrong and here's a better way to do it. But I don't want to start a subcommittee in order to pull together that information. I think this membership is well-rounded and can provide that feedback. But keep in mind also that there's departments here that I'll be engaging. At some point, I'll be engaging Brian Steich in the transportation department to take a look at the recommendations, but to take a look at the existing conditions. So I wouldn't say that we're not getting a level of expertise if we do not engage a subcommittee, if you will, or if there's not a subcommittee. I think we're okay the way we are. And I think the major things are really, I think we're looking at the things that are most engaging, if you will.
Gotcha. Dave, did you get the share up yet?
Oh, I don't know, Dave, am I good to go?
Yeah, it should be functioning. Try it.
Okay, let's see. Yep. Okay, so again, not a lot to see here, but I just wanted to show you what we're going to be sending out. Can everybody see the worksheet?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So basically what I wanted to do here, and I'm going to do this, I put together a set of instructions and some reminders. We haven't looked at the contract in a long while, and I don't want to look at the contract, but I certainly want to look at some pieces of it or parts of it that are pertinent to what we're asking the ORPC membership to do. So I put together essentially a little information piece as well as some instructions as to what I would like the group to do and when they're looking at the goals and objectives. So first, I make reference back to the 2012 plan. The fact that plan has a hierarchy of policy. And when we talk about policy, we're talking about all of those different pieces. We're talking about goals, objectives, recommendations, and down to the actions. So the biggest umbrella statements down to the very specific where the rubber hits the road policy. And we put, since we're looking at goals, objectives, we put together a little definition of what a goal is as opposed to an objective. We just make reference back to all the topic areas that were discussed in 2012, and basically all those topic areas had a separate chapter. And I think we had like 15 chapters. I forget exactly what the number was, but there was a lot. And again, we're trying to make this plan more implementable, more like you can grab it off the shelf and go through it and know what the priorities are. So while we'll be still addressing all of those same topics, they will be combined into fewer chapters. So for example, land use and housing will be together. Economic development will include all of the economic development, but will also be including agriculture as the primary mover in the region. We will also be including agriculture under land use and housing. So there won't be a separate chapter. It instead will be included within those chapters. The multimodal transportation plan, community services and facilities, parks, recreation, open space. Natural will still have its own chapter because there's a lot to it. The cultural resources plan is where we'll include historic and scenic resources, as opposed to having separate chapters on that one. And energy conservation plan will still be its own, but I know that that will be a much broader chapter than it was in 2012. There's a lot more things to pick from. Certainly solar will be a huge discussion as part of that chapter. And as I said a little bit before, what I'm asking people to do is review those goals and objectives. And I know some people will have a greater interest in one goal than they will in others. You know, somebody will be very interested in land use where they'll be like, well, natural's not really my cup of tea. I don't really know a lot about it. So I would say review them all, or review those that you think you will have comments on. And as I said, we're looking for anything. Yeah, this one seems out of date. This one, is this really within the purview of the region's municipality, or is this something that the county should be doing? Whatever. Or is there just ideas missing that we just did not discuss back in 2012 or didn't focus on as much as we should have or should now? So that's basically just an instruction sheet. And then your pages will just be all of those goals and objectives that were included in the 2012 plan. And I'm not exactly sure why it's showing underlining and crossing out, but I guess I did not. Anyway, I'll make sure it doesn't look like that. So you're not wondering why it's already showing changes. So what I'll do is I will do the same thing. Let me get out of this guy. If you recall, back in December, we gave you this initial update on the survey results, very basic results. And what we'll do is I will put together some instructions for those as well, what you should be thinking about, what you should be looking at. But really here, it's more about, gosh, I'd like to hear more about the young seniors, or I'd like to hear more about, you know, when you get down into these questions that are more specific, what did people know? What were the notes that people left when they said it was excellent living here and that sort of thing? So I'm really looking for people to look through and have your imaginations run wild. And as I said, we may not be able to address every idea, but we'll do our best to do so, because the other thing that's important about these survey results, not that it's just going to help to guide what happens in the plan chapters and what those goals and objectives are going to look like. There's also going to be part of the plan. Part of that plan, and we did this in Oxford Borough and other places, but Oxford Borough being the closest example, is that when we had policy, if we had residential comment that supported that policy, we included it with that policy, to say that we didn't just come up with this out of the blue. We heard back from our residents who said this was important to them, whether that be, you know, more trails, or whether that may be, you know, more parks, or whatever it might be. We want to be able to connect the public response directly to the policies. And I think that'll make it a much stronger plan, and a plan that the residents of the county can really go, yeah, this is a plan for the county, or for the region, not just for, you know, Oxford Borough, or just for whatever. So really feel that it's important that you guys look through this and get any ideas back to us. So again, I'll put some instructions in there. So what you're going to end up with on Monday or Tuesday, more likely Tuesday, is the meeting report and these two homework assignments. And then again, we'll move them on to the subcommittees as well in the coming weeks.
Sounds good.
And that's all I have for now.
Anybody have any questions?
No, but happy to help, Mark.
Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate it.
I don't have any questions on that plan, which sounds sensible to me, although as an old professor, nobody likes homework. But wasn't there one more agenda item, which was, were there other issues that we want to take in the course of the year? Since again, we have all these free meetings coming up.
That was the next item, was the other issues and topics.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure we were clear on the updates first.
Sorry for pushing, Charles. Yeah, that makes
No
sense.
problem. It's getting late, I understand. Look, Mark, you asked one question and then about, the very beginning of your, or about the first item. And I kind of lost track of what that was. You wanted some feedback on.
Oh, first item was goals and objectives.
Gotcha.
So the two items, the two homework assignments, I hate to call them assignments, I'm sorry. One is to review the goals and objectives from 2012 plan, get us some feedback.
Gotcha.
And the second was the initial survey results. Read through those and let us know. We plan to take a deeper dive, and we'd like to know what things we should be looking for in that deeper dive.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Anybody else have any questions on this? Okay, I guess we're back on the other issues and topics. Anybody? Yes, Mark, I guess that's probably you.
Well, I mean, it's just, with what we have a lot of work coming up in 2025. So we know that, but there's always downtime. And well, not always, but there may be downtime. And so what I want to do is just open up the conversation. I know one of the things that came up or has been coming up is solar ordinances and solar regulations and what municipalities should be doing with those. We have a really good opportunity here with these 6 municipalities that some have worked on things and some haven't worked on things. And it's such a great opportunity to share and coordinate those ideas and those needs that I just want to make sure that this group takes advantage of that. And while I don't expect everybody to have a great idea right now, or maybe you don't have any idea at all, that's fine. But if you have things that you'd like to discuss here, I think this group would welcome that when the opportunities arise. If we have a light agenda, I'd like to have a list of things. Here are the things that we heard from the members of the RPC that we'd like to discuss. Well, you know what? We've got a little time at this meeting, or even if we're just left at the end of a Thursday night meeting and we go, wow, it's only 8 o'clock. We got through that stuff quicker than we thought. Maybe we should bring up this idea that's been hanging out there. So whether it is solar ordinances or whether it's warehouses or whether it's, whatever, whatever it might be. Again, you don't have to come up with that idea tonight, but if you do have an idea, let me know. I still am the secretary, which is sometimes awkward when I'm a secretary and I'm the consultant. But that's okay. I'm used to it at this point. But I'd like to keep that running list. So if we ever have time that we can do that. And I happen to work with a lot of experts in a lot of areas, and certainly solar. The sustainability director is a good friend and works down the hallway. And if there are issues that I can pull an expert in from our office, I will do so. They've come to this group in the past to try out ideas and discussed concepts that maybe they didn't go to anybody else first for, because they know this is a group that works together. So again, don't have to say it tonight, but if you do have something, let me know. And I know, I know Oxford Borough is going through the zoning and subdivision ordinance, and just to make you feel at ease a little bit, Pauline, what you're doing is what we do. It's the hardest part of the process, but you have to work through the things the way we are. So don't feel that it's like, this is driving me. This is zoning. This is subdivision. It's the process. You have to go through and you have to come to agreement on things, or it just doesn't work. And of course you have to have the planning commission in on that conversation. But if Pauline's working through something, they go, you know what does the region think of this? Let us know. And again, I want this group to be able to take advantage of this opportunity that this group provides.
The other thing, earlier on, we used to have some people come and present to the group. So that would be another thing to put on the list of someone might be able to come and
Absolutely. Absolutely. If somebody comes up with a topic that I go, you know what, we have no expertise on that, but I know somebody who does. And we have a little bit of pull in the county and in the region that if we know somebody that knows a lot about a topic, we can invite them. And we have done it over the past. We've had the conservation district in, we've had countless people in, and that is another opportunity for this group. So like I said, email me your ideas if you have any. Anytime, not if, anytime is fine.
Mark, I have two that I wanted to bring tonight. Um, one of these is the question of what does one do with a truck stop? We have, I think Rudders is going to come back to us very soon. And we don't have a provision in our zoning ordinance for a truck stop. We have a definition of a convenience store, which is under 5,000 square feet. And we have a provision that says we accommodate any other use not listed here in our industrial district. And Rudders is going to say, we don't want to do it in the industrial district. And Rudders, I suspect, can just bury us under with their checkbook and lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit. But so one of my questions is, well, where is the truck stop in the Oxford region if we're supposed to have a truck stop in the Oxford region? I think I'd make the argument that there really isn't, that this is not the logical place for it given who we are. But that's not what Pennsylvania. Anyway, so how does one talk about that, or maybe any other use that we might say to ourselves we don't want? Where is the logical place for a warehouse in the Oxford region? I think there's kind of a consensus that at least the worst example of a warehouse is not one we want on the current proposed site.
Right.
Is okay. So that's where I'm going. And I don't know quite how to have that, how to structure that conversation.
There are two things that, David. One is that you as long as you allow for it, you don't have to have. If it's just because you don't have it doesn't mean that you're wrong.
Right.
And so if you say we have everything else can go here, then that's your cover. The second thing is you do not have to have all different sizes of a. You don't have to accommodate all sizes of a particular use. And it could be that there's a I think called dimension and appropriateness. So which we ran into when they were trying to put a large shopping center on the corner of 896 and Baltimore Pike. Yeah, you can do it, but just because you can doesn't mean you have to make it 1,000,000 square feet. And the third thing is that if somebody walks in and presents you with an issue, there's a thing called a curative amendment, which you can only do periodically. I think it's like every 5 years, something like that. But you can invoke that, which gives you time to consider the issue that's in front of you and to come to a solution to address it. But again, that's kind of a one step behind the ball thing. But I think as long as you have someplace that says everything else conceivable goes there, and if somebody doesn't want to go there, that doesn't mean you have to change.
Right.
Can I?
Go ahead.
I was going to ask a follow-up question. Now I have a follow-up question for both of you. That was very helpful. Thank you. But so one question I had is maybe this is to the group and then also David is what is the distinction between like a fueling center and a truck stop? Is the definition of those two things based on how many trucks can be there at a specific time passively, not just fueling? Is that what that is, David? I see you shaking your head. Okay,
Well,
okay, now I see her.
we don't have that definition at the moment, right?
Okay,
Actually,
okay.
actually, there is apparently a truck stop ordinance or supplemental use for truck stops
Yeah.
that has been drafted, and I guess you have it, Mark, or it should be going up for 247 review. Okay,
I haven't seen it.
At some
I can take a
point,
look for it.
it's circulating along, maybe not as fast as I would have
hoped.
Well, anyway, I don't want to bog us down where it is, but yes, I agree with you, Pauline. Carefully defining it makes a lot of sense. I don't know. I haven't seen what those definitions are that other people have used. I
Okay.
think I'm hearing what Charles said, and I agree with. Anyway, you've given me more ammunition than I had before, but the general principle made a lot of sense to me. And my optimism or my confidence is being just partly offset by stories of what Rudders has done to other municipalities in the state that have not wanted Rudders to
Right.
go in there.
Is Rudders proposing a truck stop?
They're not calling it a truck stop. They're
Okay,
calling
okay.
it a
Oh yeah,
convenience
fueling
store
store, yeah, fueling center.
on steroids. It is not comparable to the Wawa that we have.
It's not quite a Bucky's, but it's bigger than a Wawa.
Okay,
Right.
so then
That's a Rudders. I mean, here's the thing, and I'm not an attorney, and so no municipality can name every possible use. It's impossible. You can't even try, and that's why you have that caveat. That's why you say anything that's not included in this it is permitted, whatever, in our industrial district. The issue is then, where is your industrial district and how big is it? And can it allow, I mean, can your industrial district allow a landfill or, accommodate a landfill? You could go into all kinds of questions and go, yeah, well, if every municipality has to allow for every type of use, when does zoning stop being written? It doesn't. It's going to have to be rewritten every month, and that's not possible. And you have that caveat. I'm going to say most municipalities probably don't have that caveat, don't have that catch-all, and that's why reason that industrial is called the catch-all. So now, mind you, if Rudders decides to lawyer up, I'm not sure how much West Nottingham can do. I don't know, because as you said, there is case law out there that they've been able to do through whatever means that they do it. But in the simplest sense, I think you have a pretty good argument because of that catch-all that you have. But again, I'm not an attorney, and we wrote the zoning, so I'm not sure.
Good. We could
I'm not
sue.
sure if
This is
Kevin or
great.
I wrote the zoning, but you adopted it, so that kind of leaves us out. But anyway, to me, I'm not sure what else a township or a municipality of any kind can do when they know they can't write every possible permitted use down on a list.
So maybe I could broaden the topic and just say, how are all 6 of our municipalities prepared for this sort of onslaught? And
Yeah,
just say, have we done all that we need to do in the context? And of course, one of the reasons why we have the collective comprehensive plan is it's not joint zoning, but as a comprehensive plan, it does give us some protections over the use issue that we would not have if we had just gone our separate ways.
Exactly. And the other thing to consider is that maybe we put together a list of questions that are regional oriented, which of course most of the stuff we do is, but some of it's not. And then we bring it to people up in the Phoenixville region or in the Pottstown region, because they may have like Pottstown region, I can't imagine, hasn't had to deal with that. So why not ask them what they've done on a municipal basis? We have those connections. Why not use them?
So I had a question, and this is probably stupid, but because it is a regional comprehensive plan, and you might have already touched on this, do we have the capability to come together as a true region and say, over here we'll have this type of zoning, and over here we'll have that, so we don't have to have it in every single township and municipality?
We have not gone through the exercise, but because everybody adopted the plan and because there's an implementation agreement, theoretically, yes. Now,
that's what I thought. So I'm just wondering if is there any appetite for that? It's a basic question. Maybe not, but I'd like to know.
I can't answer that question, but I will say this. The one consideration is, well, who is going to take that use?
Right. Understood.
I was going to say, what municipalities are not here? Who's getting all the adult shops and vape shops?
Okay, that's it. We know we're going to. Well, but I mean, that's obviously part of that conversation, is that you can't just say, no, we're a region. We deny you, and it's never going to. You have to go, okay, well, where is the most logical place for it to happen?
Right, right. But that's true planning, right? I mean, when you look at it, yeah, that's what I'm asking. Is there any stomach for that? I don't know.
Good question.
And one other thing, which is we do have an ability to share, which is what's called fair share analysis. And so basically, if someone says, well, you don't have enough of something or other, You say, well, it's also accommodated over here and over there and someplace else.
Right.
So that's another defense.
Oh, that's good.
The fair share is tough though, because it is a moving target.
Correct.
But that doesn't mean it can't work. And we'll be doing, in fact, we're kind of working on one behind the scenes. Elise is working on a developable lands map, and we're going to be moving into the fair share analysis sooner than we would have expected to, at least in a draft format. But the only issue with fair share is that it is a moving target. So you can, like the borough could say, we've got plenty of apartments. We don't multifamily. We got 20% of what we have in the borough is multifamily. And then the argument could be simply, but it's about what you accommodate from this point on, not what you already have. So again, it's a lot to swallow, and it's a lot of information, and we will be discussing the fair share in the future. But yes, Eileen, all of those are questions that this body could consider.
Yes.
I would add housing in general to like this ongoing discussion, because through our ordinance amendments and just generally we're trying to increase the housing inventory in the borough, specifically affordable housing and that missing middle housing. And we know that's a big issue regionally. I know it's a big issue for the folks at like the new Christiana Care, where are those nurses and such going to live. And what we're finding is we're so built out already that while we want to try to find a partner and build something out within the borough, it may be that the best parcels, the parcels that are big enough for something really substantial and impactful, are in one of in the townships. And we'd love to be able to collaborate and work together on that, since it affects all of us. And like a lot of things, right? Our people move around and work one place, live in another place, and all that.
That's also what you just mentioned about being built out is also defense against somebody coming and saying that I want to put something so and so place.
Yes.
If you physically do not have the area to accommodate it, or the areas to accommodate, they can't force you to say, tear down this place and let me put my buildings in.
And the borough's quite close. It's not 95% built out, but it's getting there.
Well, look, East Nottingham is looking at 4 developments, which would be about 1,000 places to live pretty soon.
Yeah.
We'll make sure they're affordable, because if I move down there, I'm going to need a cheap place to stay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how many of those are single family homes that with a median selling price of like between $400,000 and $500,000? That's not. I don't think that's solving the problem for.
No,
I mean,
I understand.
inventory
I
in
can't
general,
afford to do
but
it.
yeah, it's kind of crazy how fast they go up and how much they cost.
It's horrible.
Yeah, agreed.
Eileen, it does my heart good to hear somebody talking about the possibility of regional zoning. I'm not proposing it. It just does my heart good to hear it, because 12
Well,
years ago, we could barely have we had real uncertainty as to whether we could come up with a comprehensive plan. I mean,
yeah.
comprehensive plans involving the 6 municipality were blown out of the water when the effort was made in the 60s. We were able to do it 12 years ago, and I saw all that's happened in the 12 years since is that confidence and I wouldn't quite say kumbaya, but anyway, confidence has increased in our ability to work together and benefit one another, to the point that somebody could talk about regional zoning without everybody groaning or throwing things at the screen.
Well,
So
we
I
are
think
on Zoom,
this is a
David.
tribute.
We are on Zoom, so there's that.
That's true. That's true. And since you mentioned it, in memory of John Thylacker, who some of you will remember, I would say that TDR is also potentially a possibility that we could talk about as a tool that could be used to meet all of our collective goals here. And that's the basic idea of density increases in return for buying up or reducing development in other parts of the region. And I'm sure Mark could bring us other tools that potentially he could salivate over our potential willingness to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think John Thylacker would come out of retirement, move back to the East Coast just to have the opportunity to bring TDR to the Oxford region. But yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about a lot of things. We did the first time, we will the second time, but I do think there's more openness to those ideas, and we'll see. We'll see how we get by with that.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to hold us too late, but the other topic I had to raise is I wonder if we could learn from one another as to what kind of material we have to give our residents as to what are their rights and responsibilities. I've been on the planning commission for a good long time, and I've been buried in our zoning ordinance, and I still don't have a very clear idea of what I am and I'm not allowed to do on my property.
Mm.
And the other day I went and I looked at the paperwork that somebody fills out. We have a zoning permit application. We also have a building permit application. And to me, they are totally incoherent. They do not tell me whether I need a permit for a shed on my property. They don't tell me when I need to contact somebody about stormwater. They don't really tell me whether I can put a pod on my property. And I'm supposed to be familiar with this stuff. Um, and I just wonder, the typical person, what you sort of somehow your parents are supposed to tell you all about decks and what the particular rules are. And I'm hoping that maybe some of the other municipalities have much clearer documentation on when you need to do something or not. It seems the bottom line is call the codes enforcement officer, tell him what you're thinking of doing, and then he'll tell you how much you have to pay for whatever it is you need to do. But that doesn't seem like a very cost-effective or friendly way to do it, especially if, like presidential executive orders, the next codes enforcement officer comes up with a completely different interpretation of what you're allowed to do. So,
Yeah, it's been something we've talked about at the county for years, and you're exactly right. People don't know what they can and can't do, and oftentimes we'll just go ahead and do it, and then unfortunately have the neighbors complain, and then it gets ugly. And I've always thought, the planning commission should have a half an hour discussion at the end of every meeting where they open up to the public to just ask questions like, what I want to build a shed. Can I build, like, before I come in and do the permit or whatever, can I build a shed? And if I can, how big can it be? How far does that have to be away from my house? Whatever, like just an information sharing for your average resident who doesn't know. And your average resident's probably 90% of the residents don't have any idea. I mean, I only know because of my background. And, I also know the township that I work in, I work with them. So, but yeah, I think that's a great idea, although it would probably mean more work for your volunteers,
Well, I was going to say,
which is, yeah.
So we should start with what municipality do you live in?
yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
No,
Your
that's
average
just a
person
joke.
has
Yeah, no idea.
but it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true.
No,
I
but
mean, I
this
know
is,
people that have gone to other township buildings to ask questions. They're like, you don't live here.
yeah,
You live in
our police
Euclid.
department
Like, I
gets a
don't know
lot of
why
those calls in particular.
you're,
Yeah.
Yeah, so but what I was gonna say, this has been something we've been trying to tackle. So we have a staff that does this. So as we do things that we think may be helpful, I'm happy to share that with you. There's no point in reinventing the wheel. And taxing already taxed volunteers, but we put together a welcome packet for new residents, and we've talked about, and we're working on adding in, we can't do it for everything, but the things that keeps coming through codes, that the biggest things that come through codes or that people get dinged for because they didn't know they couldn't, laying in that, you need a permit for X, 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 and some of the basics of that. We've also talked about using Facebook as more of like a just periodic community education posts, like, how do I put up a shed? Well, here's what you need to do, right? So we're trying to be more proactive, including updating our permit forms. Like specifically, one example is with stormwater, right? It's been kind of common practice for folks to just empty their pool water, into their yard or into the storm sewer. Can't do that anymore. So now we've included in the permit process, here's what you need, here's how you need to dispose it, or you could get, a violation. So we're trying to build it into in multiple points. I don't know how much. We also you get double the permit fee if you build without a permit. So we're trying to attack it all levels. And as we make improvements to things, I'm happy to share that with you all so that you can take what you want and maybe save yourself some time or maybe, tell us, hey, have you considered this? It might be better. We're open to that too.
That's great.
Well, thank you.
Okay, anybody else got anything to add to other issues and topics?
Just one thing, I did figure out who the
Oh.
person appointed to historical chairperson was for the Historical Society. It was Kathy Justy, Juisty. Kathy spelled with a K. Is that person who asked still on with
Yep,
us?
that was Blair. Yep.
Yeah, I'm here. I was just trying to look it up and the
Okay.
agenda and the minutes aren't posted yet and the agenda is no longer there from January. So thank you for this.
Yeah, well,
Thanks, Joe.
yeah, I kind of found it while we were talking. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, do we have any members of the public who'd like to have some public input? Hearing none. Do I have here a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. I guess we are all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Good to go. And oh, by the way, Mark, congratulations on your new boss.
Oh yeah. We're very excited. We finally have word on. He is a former assistant transportation director in Montgomery County. And yeah, we're very excited about it. Matt, and I can't remember his last name right now. It's terrible getting old, but I do know him fairly well and can't remember his name. It's terrible. But in any case, yeah, we'll get him out to a regional meeting in the next little while once he gets up to speed. And I know Montgomery County is big on regional planning, so I'm sure he'll be very excited to hear about what this group's up to.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you very much.
Everybody, yep, everybody, thank you all, and we'll see
Thank you.
See you eventually.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Have a
sharing,
good night,
Charles.
everybody.
My pleasure. Thank you.